princess has been captured.
There's one. Set for stun.
Our heroes are threatened by an Imperial troop transporter. Will the mighty force of the Millennium Falcon be enough to smash Darth Vader? Will Luke be able to save the princess? Only you can decide. Look for the new Palitoy Star Wars models in toy shops now. But hurry.
The 1970s. Filmmaker George Lucas is about to launch a visionary new film that will revolutionize cinema. This is not that story.
Hey guys, Terry from Big Cosplay here. We've got a very, very special guest tonight. We have David Whiteley, BBC presenter from the UK. Also massive Star Wars fan, hence all the Star Wars bits and pieces. So tonight is a bit of a Star Wars thing. So he's got his headphones off right now because he's watching the intro. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce David, and as soon as he turns his phone to silent. So guys, please just give a warm welcome to David Whiteley, and again, David, thanks so much for coming along.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was just watching the intro there. It was just absolutely fantastic, Terry. I'm blown away. It was just like, I thought, should I stop watching now? Should I join in?
I decided to ham it up just a little bit.
That was great. It was really fantastic. So thank you for the very special intro. Thank you.
That's all right. So I've just let everybody know that you're a BBC presenter at the moment, and you've been doing a lot of these interviews and live streams and bits and pieces for a few different people, and you've just been great to come on with me. This is fantastic. Well,
I'm very flattered to be asked, Terry. So thank you very much. It's I noticed that your libation of choice is a beer at your time of day, and mine is a coffee because it's
beer o'clock.
Just gone 11.
Hey, the pubs are open at 10. Come on.
Well, yeah. To be fair, they're not yet open here. We've got a bit longer to wait yet.
Yeah, I think we've actually got a few pubs open at the moment, which is good. So anyway, let's kick straight into it. Now, you're a presenter, and also at the same time, you I'm not sure if you directed or produced the 30 minutes.
A bit of everything. A bit of everything. Yeah. So
tell us about Palitoys. Tell us about the toy empire.
I'll tell you about Toy Empire first. Okay, so that was kind of the most recent documentary that we made about Star Wars. So we'd made the Galaxy Britain Built. We'd made the 90-minute documentary, and I'd written the book. And we're
going to come back to the documentary and the book. So we'll
cool. We're going to reverse order. But the Toy Empire came about because I'm a massive Star Wars fan as a kid. I was born on May the 4th, Star Wars Day '77. So I was always surrounded by the toys and everything, and I've got some of my collection behind me here. We wanted to tell the story of the kind of British side of the toys. So of course you had Kenner in the US got the contract. They were the guys making the toys.
Yep.
But they wanted a British subsidiary, and Palitoy was part of the same group. So Palitoy, very successful in Britain at the time. They were making mainline train sets. They were doing Action Man.
Action Man.
Exactly. You remember Action Man. I don't know what happened to my Action Man. They've all disappeared. And Tiny Tears, and they were doing very well with these things. Mm-hmm. And another toy group, another toy division in the group was approached by General Mills, who owned all the companies, and they said, look, they went to the guys that made Spirograph. And they said to them, do you want to take on Star Wars? And they said, oh no, we've got a deal coming with another company. So you guys can take Star Wars at Palitoy. And the MD at the time said, if you sure, you don't, oh no, we've got to deal with something else. So anyway, so of course, this all came about. So Palitoy took the contract for Star Wars. And then, their factory is in a small town in Leicestershire, middle of Britain, middle of England. So a place called Coalville. So you had coal mines there, hence the name. And the only other sort of main kind of work, if you like, was the Palitoy factory. Mm-hmm. So you either worked down the mines, or you worked.
Or you made toys.
You made toys, So what a choice. And you had the designers there. and of course the factory staff as well. So what was interesting was that the guys at Palitoy were kind of given not free rein, but a bit more carte blanche to change things a bit, because of course in America you've got a big market 10 times the size of the UK, so they could do injection molding and all that kind of stuff, and spend a lot of money on the equipment to make the toys. Whereas in little old Blighty, you know, they had to kind of come up with cheaper ways of making the toys, which they did. And I think one of the biggest collectible items, Terry, is the Palitoy cardboard Death Star in the States.
Oh,
it was this big plastic thing. Yeah.
Oh.
Did you
No. I've seen one. I've actually seen one, because when I was watching the documentary, I was like, I've seen one of those. I have actually seen one back when I was a kid, but then I've never seen one since. No,
I saw them in the shops. I never had one. I had my Falcon. I've still got my Millennium Falcon, but the Palitoy cardboard Death Star goes for far more than the plastic ones now, because you know they're so rare, because they were cardboard. Of course, they got destroyed. Kids were playing with them, and they
took no time at all to destroy it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to destroy the Death Star. So these guys are kind of, you know, changing things and adapting things, and borrowing and stealing bits from different play sets. So they would take the cannons from the X-wing and put them on the top of the Death Star and all that kind of stuff. And what was interesting for me when we made that doc, incidentally, a friend of mine, Rick, came to me with the idea, and he said, you know, we should do this. I said, do you think people are really going to be interested in this story about Palitoy? And of course, you know, lots of people were. And you know, the guys who were trying to market Star Wars, they had a real job. It almost kind of mirrored kind of it had the parallels of George Lucas hawking the script around of Star Wars, trying to get it off the ground and trying to get a movie studio interested. It was the same really for the retailers in the UK. A lot of them didn't see it doing very well. We were at a disadvantage here, or they were. I was going to say that the Royal We, like I was part of the team. I feel like I was. I spent so much time working.
Oh, you spent so much time with them doing it.
Yeah, you did, and because in the States it came out May 25th, 77, and in the UK, Star Wars didn't hit. I think it was December 27th, 77. So most people didn't get to see it in the UK till sort of early part, maybe even spring 78, because obviously now we're so used to everything being released at the same time.
Instantly, it's like it's there.
Instantly, in every multiplex, you know. But in the UK, it was rolled out, and there are only so many copies of the prints of Star Wars. So they were taken around the country, and gradually people got to see Star Wars. So by the end of 78, most people had seen Star Wars who wanted to see it. But it took a long time, you know. So there's been almost 2 years there where it had been released in the States, and then before people had seen it here. So that kind of, they were having to try and convince the retailers that there was longevity in it, and they would be able to kind of, you know, that people would still be interested in Star Wars a year, 2 years afterwards. And of course, that's before The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi came along.
And all the rest of it, yeah.
And all the rest, everything else.
Oh.
So yes, so it was quite an interesting situation. So we went along to the place in Leicestershire, Calder. Of course, you know, it's no longer the factory, but there's a conference centre there, and it's pretty much as it was back in the day. So you've got all these guys who worked at Palitoy, all stayed friends over the years, all maintained contact with each other, and they had these reunions. And they're saying, oh yeah, over here we did the designs, and in this was the office where we took the orders, and over here was the factory floor. So we go into this place where, in fact, it didn't make the final cut of the film, but we go into this place, the plastics factory, and that was where the figures were all being made, and all the you know, the AT-ATs and the
I saw a couple of shots of that, and I was like, oh, production line.
Oh, I know. Well, the great thing is, and there's so much stuff didn't make the doc, but apparently, if you worked there at Palitoy, I think it was on a Friday, you could go into the factory outlet shop on the site.
Okay.
And you literally, for £5, you could fill a bin bag full of Star Wars toys. Stuff that maybe was a slight defect, or the packaging wasn't quite right.
So somebody's got a garage full of toy bits.
Yeah, they will have. And what's really sad and not, I mean, we did put this in the doc. I know other people are exploring this fact, is that when kind of Star Wars came to an end in that period, sort of the mid 80s when you could go to Woolworths and buy a pack of 6 for 99 pence. They've had all this stock left, and it went into landfill. So there's this fabled landfill site somewhere
that everyone's out there with plastic detectors going beep beep.
Yeah,
beep,
but
beep, beep.
And I did say to people, "Would you want to go?" And they were like, "It's been in there like 30 years. Do you really want to go down and get that amongst all the nappies and everything else?"
It's probably still intact.
Probably is. If people are prepared to dig for it, then I'm sure they would. But also, I mean, yeah, there was skip diving, so obviously stuff would end up in skips. And the local kids, they knew this, so they go around the back of the factory and dive in the skip. And I remember meeting this lady. She said to me that her husband used to do skip diving, and one day, the headmistress, she found out that he'd been skip diving. He was hauled into the office. He thought, "Oh, I'm in trouble now." And she said, "Right," she said, "now listen, the next time you go skip diving, can you try and get my son a Millennium Falcon?" So everyone wanted Star Wars in that area, and yeah, I mean, market forces kind of ended up meaning that Palitoy was sold off, which was very sad, and then it sort of changed hands a few times, and it was kind of the mid-90s when it kind of finally closed up.
Yeah, I think the last owner was Hasbro, was it?
That's right. Yeah, of course, Hasbro now. Obviously, since then, have had the contract to make Star Wars toys, and they still do a fantastic job. I've got a few of them kicking around in my office, But I think that there was certainly a sense, talking to the people that worked there, Terry, that was a great time in their lives. Wonderful time to kind of be together because they were making toys, and they all got on really well. And they all had a great time.
Maybe not for the girls on the production floor.
No,
take an arm, take a body, take a leg, head, click,
snap,
done.
snap.
Next.
That was it. They snapped them all together, and that was all perfect, and that's what they did, and they kind of, it was to every one they did, they got paid for. So that's how they got their money. That's
a pretty good way of doing it, actually.
Yeah, that's how they kind of worked it. But yeah, there's a real sense of, I don't know, you go there, you think, well, what a sad story, really, because at one point it was, the epicenter for children's toys, not just Star Wars toys, as I mentioned earlier, Action Man and Mainline and Tiny Tears, and so much came out of there, and they had to be innovative with their designs, and then it all just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, toys, unfortunately, these days is a massive business. But I mean, it's making collectibles. They become replicas, and there's no money in it, unfortunately. So I don't think they'd be able to continuously roll those sort of things out. Plus, I don't know if you had any of those Palitoy Star Wars figures, but I remember having one or two when I was a kid. And even though I wasn't a Star Wars fan, I still had one or two in the Lego box.
Yeah. Rather larger Lego figures. Yeah, no, I did. I've still got them, and they've started to kind of reproduce the original ones, the retro figures they're calling them now. So you can buy the kind of retro figures.
The molds were terrible.
They were. Well, they were. I mean,
the detail was just not there.
But that didn't bother me. I mean, it
never bothered anyone back then. We had imaginations then.
You just had Star Wars, and you had Star Wars in your hand. I'm trying to find one here where's Han Solo here? There we go. These are the.
Oh, he's still in a box.
Ones.
Oh, that's the retro.
No, it's retro. It's a replica. Yep. So they're not the ones from the original time, but they're that's, as you say. How is that Harrison Ford? But
yeah. Hang on, I'm going to do something here, and I'm just going to flip my video around, because every time I try and look at you, I am... There we go.
In reverse.
Now I can look at you. It looks like I'm looking off the screen.
He's going away. He's had it up already. We've only just begun.
Yeah, it's like, I just want to... No, kidding. But now I can actually look at you and talk at you and point at you on the screen.
That's it, great. Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously at the time it was George Lucas was very clever, wasn't he? And the merchandise really kind of fueled that.
It was massive.
Because 3 years between movies as well. You've got to keep that interest going. You've got to keep the children interested. Of course, there were the fabulous comics, but to have the merchandise, whether it's the figures and the vehicles, or any books or stationery sets or whatever it may be with Star Wars on it, that was going to keep the interest going.
So, all right, let's talk about the documentary. So
Well,
we're going
Galaxy
backwards here.
Britain Built.
Yes,
Okay,
the Galaxy
well,
Britain Built.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll share my screen here,
Yep.
and I'll show you some pictures here from. I hope you can see this. Is that can you see that there? Is that okay?
Yep.
Is that working with you? Okay, so okay, the Galaxy Britain Built was the.
You can go to slideshow mode. So just click play.
Oh yeah, slideshow mode. Okay, and then hit. Okay, cool. So you should see that now. Yeah, cool. Okay,
There you go.
so
Perfect.
So the Galaxy, perfect. So the Galaxy Britain Built, the British force behind Star Wars. This was something that first of all came about when my sort of passion for Star Wars kind of reignited, and it was following the release of The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens came out in December 2015, and I went to see it unashamedly 9 times at the cinema. I was hooked. It had everything I wanted for Star Wars. It had the fabulous new characters in Finn, Rey, and Kylo Ren, and then you also had the nostalgia as well with the old characters, the legacy characters, and it just felt like Star Wars, and it was just brilliant. And I was really excited about it. And then I was on my way back from a shoot. I've been in London filming something for my TV show, my current affairs program on BBC One. And I was just flicking idly through Twitter, and I saw that Mark Hamill was doing an interview at the Cambridge Student Union. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to get Mark Hamill in the can and talk about his time filming in Britain? So, of course, everyone else wanted to do the same thing. So I contacted the Student Union. They contacted Mark, and he said, yeah, he was happy to do it. Unfortunately, it didn't come about in the end. But I thought that this kind of fueled me, if you like, to kind of do something more official. So I contacted Disney, and Disney were very cool. I had a chat with them in their offices in London. One of my best friends, Matt, who was the director on the project, came with me for this meeting, and they said we could film at Star Wars Celebration. And this was 2016. So I went back to my bosses and I said, look, I've got this. I might have it in here. I might be able to do something on the British people who made Star Wars. The title came to me straight away. The Galaxy Britain Built. Thought that kind of says what it says on the tin. And off we went. So we first of all filmed at Celebration. How do I go to the next slide here?
Press space, I think.
Space. Here we are. Is it going to play? No, it's not playing. Oh, there. Oh no, it's gone back too far. How do I go back one? There we are. All right. So this is when we filmed Star. Look, so I'm wearing the same T-shirt. I do own other T-shirts. I
was going to say, you're wearing that same T-shirt.
Yeah, I have several of those. So here we are with this is the very first interview we did for the Galaxy Britain Built, and this is Nick Maley, who worked in the creature making department on Star Wars, and he was very instrumental in helping make all the creatures for Star Wars. And as you can see here, he helped make Yoda as well. So he made Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. So I got that interview in the can. He was very emotional, and we had loads of stuff from Star Wars Celebration. And then the ball kind of got rolling a bit. And then I contacted, I managed to get an address for John Moller, who was the costume designer. He's sadly no longer around, but he won an Oscar for his Star Wars designs, and also won an Oscar for Gandhi. And he used to be a military historian, and he was an advisor for David Lean on Dr. Zhivago. And then Peter Beale, who was the exec 20th Century Fox in London, recommended him and one other person to George Lucas. And George really liked John Mollo's work. So he hired John. And John had obviously you get fabulous concept art from Ralph McQuarrie. And it was John's job to take that concept art and turn it into something that could be wearable, that actually would be practical and could work on screen. So he worked on Darth Vader's costume and Princess Leia's and Stormtroopers and Han Solo, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And when we filmed with him, he opened up his sketchbooks, and they were sort of tucked away for goodness knows how decades. And he opened them up, and there was all this stuff from the 1970s, where he'd done all the sketches, all the kind of the progression as well, the progression of this stuff. So where something hadn't quite worked, but parts of it had, he'd kind of move it around and then do the next bit. So that was fantastic. So we got John in the can, and then this gentleman is a legend in the world of filmmaking, Robert Watts. he was the production supervisor on Star Wars. After Star Wars, I'll just do this as an aside. He went on to be very instrumental in The Empire Strikes Back. Was the producer on Return of the Jedi, and worked on the first 3 Indiana Jones films. In fact, he produced Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade. So this guy was like, he's still around. He's a fabulous guy, and become a great friend. And this is at Elstree. So this is Elstree, Studio 8, at the soundstage here, where Robert spent much of his life filming and making wonderful movies. And so here we are sitting in his studio. And he said to me afterwards, he said, nobody's ever interviewed me for as long as this. And it was only about an hour. And I thought, really? You're instrumental in 6 of the most amazing movies of all time. Why has nobody sat you down and had a long conversation with
it's called Unsung Heroes.
Yeah, I think you're right, Terry. I think, and that was the mantra really with what we were hoping to do with the doc was kind of give these people a bit of credence really, and
a bit of screen time, a bit of.
Yeah.
I mean, majority of the names on the credits at the end of a movie, no one ever sees.
No, that's right.
You get to that last scene, and then the first credit rolls, and you've already flicked off. So
yeah, exactly. So to get these guys and to tell from their point of view how Star Wars came about. Robert got the wonderful deal with Elstree Studios. He went to Pinewood and he tried to hire Pinewood, and they said to him, we never rent all the sound stages, everything to one production, which is what they wanted for Star Wars, because they knew they needed vast amounts of area, huge amounts of studio space and workshops. So he said, okay, and he went to Elstree and he told the guy there, Andrew Mitchell, who ran the place at the time, he wanted to rent the whole place. And he said, be my guest. And they rented the whole place, all the sound stages, all the workshops, all the land for £75,000. So they had the whole place where they could make the creatures in the workshops, they could make sets and everything. And it was pretty much all done there. So, because apart from filming in Tunisia, where they filmed, all the Tatooine stuff and the odd shots here and there, it was pretty much all done at Elstree. All the stuff. And
£75,000 is a drop in the well for a $4 million budget.
Yeah, and it was $4 million to start with, and it kind of increased a bit more, but it didn't come much with that. Now here we are. This needs no introduction.
The Holy Grail.
Yeah. So here we have Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Well, actually, it was Anakin's beforehand, but actually, the educated among you will know that that's a Graflex handle from a 1940s press camera. So you had the camera where you had the flash bulb go off.
Yep.
And you press that red button, and you go poof. So Roger Christian, just pop onto his one. Here he is, Roger Christian, set decorator. He won an Oscar as part of being part of the design team on Star Wars. And it was his job to kind of make a lot of the stuff for pretty much nothing. So because the budget was so tight, they had to make do. And I think this is how Star Wars came about. The aesthetic we all know and love now from the last 40 plus years came from these guys' ingenuity, really, because they didn't have much money. So Roger and his boss John Barry was in charge of the production design. He came up with this idea of getting old aeroplane parts. So they flew around to all these different places in England where they were kind of plane graveyards, and they come back with all this junk and strip it all down, and they try and find stuff that was really interesting within that that looked like it was functionable or looked like it had a purpose, but it would be unrecognizable once sort of broken down. So he had all this stuff, all this junk. In fact, Roger's book has a lot of it in there. Cinema Alchemist is a fantastic book, talks about where they are going around all these different sites to kind of get this stuff.
Sounds like cosplay.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's the same kind of mantra, isn't it? To be fair, Terry, it's thinking, well, does that look like it has a function? So if you were making something for a costume, you would look at something and think, well, does that look like it has a place in this?
If you saw my storage shelf over here with all the bits and pieces,
in the Death Star.
I could probably make one.
Yes, I could. Yeah, you probably could. To be fair, from scratch, you might have the Emperor on your case asking to build it and get the 6th or 7th Death Star. But yeah, so he would, and he also got weapons, Sterling submachine gun, and put bits of T-strip around it, He also did that. He took the Mauser, which he made into Han Solo's weapon, but he couldn't find anything for the lightsaber, and production was getting very, very close. They were due to ship out to Tunisia, driving all the way from, crossing the channel and then driving all the way down to Tunisia with all the stuff. And he went into a camera shop where they hired a lot of stuff. And he went through some boxes and he found a load of these things, the flash guns. And he said, this is it. So he said to me in the interview that he hardly did anything with it. He just put some T-strip around it. Bit of bubble strip from an old calculator in the clip.
I saw the bubble strip there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then George Lucas just said, I'll put a belt hook on it, put a belt loop, and that's it. It's done. So there we are. That's the actual handle. And John Steers was instrumental in making the blade work. It rotated, and they had 3M reflective material on it. So in those early days of kind of animating the lightsaber, that's what they did. I mean, they were so incredibly creative, and the ingenuity, back in the mid 70s. And Roger said, look, if it looked right, then it went in. That's what happened. So necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it? So
it's the mother of all evil.
As well. I think had it not been for these guys kind of just thinking, sort of borrowing and stealing things to kind of make things work, then you wouldn't have the look of Star Wars that we have today.
I mean, just the creativity of actually being able to just go off on a basic sketch idea and go, I'll slap this together. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
there's your lightsaber.
Exactly. And it all sort of comes together like that, and it is rather incredible how they kind of managed to do that with very little money. I think Roger said to me that they came in under budget. His budget came in under. He was given a very small amount of money, and he had so much to build. It's so lovely talking to Roger, and if you ever can catch up with any of his interviews, he's a wonderful guy. He lives and breathes it, and still very passionate about what he did on Star Wars to this day. Because after Star Wars, him and Les Dilley, who was the assistant art director on Star Wars, they went to work on Alien with Ridley Scott. And they did loads of fantastic work on there, and that's in Roger's book as well. Now here we are. So this is more modern times. Here we are. It's still in the same documentary, but here we are. This is me and Gareth Edwards, so the British director who directed Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
Star Wars fan himself, and he always wanted to be a filmmaker. And for him, getting the job on Star Wars was just wonderful. So he went from making a very low budget film, fantastic film called Monsters. If you've not seen it, I can thoroughly recommend it. He had a script. He had an idea.
I've seen that.
You've seen the film, yeah?
Yes.
It's absolutely fantastic, brilliant film, isn't it? So what they did was him and Colin Gowdy, who also edited Rogue One. A picture of him next, I think. But great friends, great buddies. Funny enough, they met at the BBC working on documentaries, and they started chatting about Star Wars, and they realised they were wasting all their time in the edit suite because they were chatting about Star Wars lots. And then Gareth got this deal to kind of go and make this film that he really wanted to make, and they had a script, they had some actors, and Gareth was the DP as well, and they had a very small crew, and they went off to these different countries, and they'd say, right, okay, so this part of the script is this. Is there something going on here that we can fit around this? So a very clever way of making a film. You have a rough idea for a story or a rough script, but then you kind of fit things around what you want it to be. So that's what he did, and then he would do a load of sign replacement stuff afterwards, all the graphics, all the special effects he did himself after. And that got him noticed. And then from there, he ended up doing one of the remakes of Godzilla, which is a fantastic movie. And then he got the gig on Rogue One. And I'm biased, but I think it's one of the best Star Wars films. I think it's fantastic. I did say to him in the doc, I said, what was it like, when you saw your name directed by Gareth Edwards? He said, I can die now. He said, it's just amazing.
I've reached my pinnacle. I can die now. Yeah,
exactly. As a kid, I remember getting the top load of VHS machine, sliding in Star Wars, pushing it down, and we're about the same age. We sort of chatted about those kind of feelings of putting getting that VHS, putting it in, and thinking, wow, this is me. I love this. I love this film. And for him to for me to make a documentary about it I'm happy about that, because he's actually made a Star Wars movie. So he wins. But yeah, I mean, a really nice guy as well. And I know that he's still based in LA now, and he's doing he's working on other things at the moment. So watch this space from him. What else have we got here? Okay, that's the book. We're on to the book now. Should we talk about the book, Derek?
We shall talk about the book.
Yeah, so I did the original documentary. So the original documentary was 60 minutes. And then I went back and remade it. So me and Matt decided. So I was the producer and presenter on Galaxy, and Matt was the director and the film editor. And we decided to kind of punt it again and see if we'd get another 30 minutes out of it. We had loads more stuff we'd not put in. Then we got the guys from the London Symphony Orchestra, which was great. And we had a wonderful lady called Anne Skinner. Tracked her down, and she was on continuity on Star Wars. So she told some great stuff and took all the Polaroids and all the stuff. And Lucasfilm gave us permission to film the annotated scripts and the Polaroids, which are in the BFI archive, British Film Institute archive, just north of London. So that was fantastic. And but in the background, I'd been approached by a couple of publishers who wanted me to write a book. And I'd never written a book before. I mean, I do a lot of writing as a journalist, as a filmmaker, but I've never written a book before. So I redid a load of the interviews. I kept in touch with everybody, and I emailed them. We had Skype calls, and we had phone chats and stuff. So I thought there's a lot more to tell here. So I went back to the transcripts, and my transcripts of the interviews were about 120,000 words. It was like, it took me a very long time. A lot of midnight oil got burnt. It was like, oh my word, I spent ages doing that. Anyway, some painful memories. But anyway, so I kind of started to break it all down. I thought I wanted to tell more than the documentary had, and also put in some stories that weren't just related to Star Wars. So there's stuff in here about Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Alien, and then of course Rogue One. So also got Gareth and Colin Gowdy in there. So a bit of that, and the foreword was written. My friend Robert Watts said that he would write the foreword for the book. I was like, this doesn't happen. So that was fantastic. I was like blown away. And then Les Dilly and Robert said to me that I could use their personal photographs that had never seen the light of day before. I was like, whoa, really? So didn't put them in the doc. There's one or two in the doc, but so we got, this is a great one here. So this is from Robert in his collection. So you got Ralph McQuarrie there. You got George Lucas in the middle. I wouldn't know what they're saying here. And the other gentleman here is Norman Reynolds, who was on the British production team as well. I think, what on earth are they talking about there? It wouldn't be great to know. Obviously going through artwork or something, something.
Yeah, it looks like a cell or something like that.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? This is a great one because you've got Robert Watts here and the production designer John Barry. And John Barry is one of these people who doesn't really kind of get much attention. Very sadly, he passed away during the production of The Empire Strikes Back. He had meningitis. Very talented man, incredibly talented man. And he's in our documentary, but we found some BBC archive of him talking about Star Wars. And this here is a recce for The Empire Strikes Back, and obviously a location they never used because The Empire Strikes Back is set on they filmed in Finse in Norway, which became the ice planet Hoth.
Yep.
And this is on the equator at Kenya, in Kenya, and they were doing recce's and trying to work out where they were going to film The Empire Strikes Back. So it's a very rare picture. You got Robert there and John Barry. And this, oh my word, I couldn't believe this. This was amazing. So I was chatting with Robert's house, not quite a while before the book was going into production, and I was sort of still writing it. And this is Robert, his wife, and his children outside their house during the heat wave of 1976, and he tells the story that Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill, wanted to come round for Sunday lunch, hadn't had Yorkshire puddings and roast beef, etc. So he said, "I'll come over." So this is in London in a very suburban part of London. I just love this. You've got Harrison Ford, you've got Anthony Daniels there as well playing C-3PO. You've got Mark Hamill putting a face there with his hat on, and you've got Pat Carr, Robert Watts' assistant. Robert's there, Robert's wife and children. And I said, "Where's Carrie?" And he said, "Oh, she took the picture." So there we are. Isn't that fantastic? So, and then apparently they had a water fight in the garden after that. It was instigated by Mark because it was the heat wave of 1976. I say heat wave. I mean, compared to where you are, it'd probably be very normal.
Yeah, heat wave. It was 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, it was 15.5 degrees Celsius in the UK, and we all got very excited.
And the ice cream was melting.
Yeah, exactly. The tarmac started to melt. But yeah, I mean, just stories like this. I mean, that picture has been tucked away in a family album for 40 years.
That's just time lost. That is.
Yeah, and to kind of be given permission to use that was, for me, was just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, there's loads more pictures, loads more behind the scenes stuff of filming on Star Wars that Les Dilly very kindly let me use as well. So there's loads of stuff in the book that's not really been seen before. We want Toy Empire. We've already talked about Toy Empire. So there we are.
Look, I like Toy Empire. Toy Empire was really, really good. It was so well put together.
Thank you. Well, I'll just whiz a couple of bits. So here we go, the production line.
Yeah, this one we're talking about the production lines, and so just basically, putting these things together and screwing them down, and well, actually, the Millennium Falcon actually has some screws in it, if I remember right.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I spent a disproportionate amount of money on eBay finding the replacement parts for my Falcon. And actually would have been cheaper to have bought an old second-hand one intact. As I discovered afterwards, I thought that was just ridiculous. But it's my Falcon, Terry, and I wanted it to.
You wanted it to be original, yeah.
Exactly. And here we are. Imagine all these toys going off the production line. The fantastic,
I remember the side of these things used to open up.
That's right. Yeah, it did.
And you used to be able to put the little stormtroopers in there and everything like that. Because I think a friend of mine had one.
And they got the pegs on the side of the legs.
Yes.
Yeah, the pegs on the side of the legs, and you could put them as if they were kind of climbing up, as if it was Luke climbing up to kind of put the charge inside to blow it up. And this is fantastic. Look at this. I mean, this is what went to the trade. So these guys saying, look at all these statistics and everything, and how well it was doing. And it's sad, isn't it? If you look at the date here, January 1984, and this is after Return of the Jedi had come out. And I think that Jeff Mazie, who was the marketing director for Palitoy at the time, said in the documentary, he said, we thought it was going to go on. We couldn't see, but of course we did know it went on, but it took a long time. They were kind of the wilderness years of Star Wars. And then it all came back again. And somebody said to me, how long did it take you to make the Galaxy Britain book? I said, well, I've probably been making it my entire life. Because being a Star Wars fan, it's always been there. Oh, and there I am as a figure. I don't know. You probably saw that in the documentary.
Yeah, you've got your own action figure. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did. But this is the best one. They didn't really see the light of day. So there we go. That's my favourite one. It sits in my office. Slightly worried about the crotch area. But there we go.
The question is, do you actually have a Stormtrooper costume?
No, I
Why
don't have
not?
any. I know I should.
Seriously. I mean, the 501st guys would whip you one up in 3 seconds flat.
They probably would.
They've got all the molds and everything for it. It's all just vacuum formed. So they'd rip you one out. Yeah, you'd have the whole thing done. Oh.
Don't. I'm trying to be good, not spend any more money at the moment. I'm trying to be well behaved. I'm trying to be well behaved. So there we are. So that's it.
Try not to spend any money. Meanwhile, behind this green screen.
Yeah, this isn't real. This is like. No, I love your background. That's fantastic. So that's kind of, excuse me. It's kind of an insight into it. I mean, it's we were very lucky that the documentaries went out in the UK. I'm hoping they'll go out, internationally at some point. Toy Empire is going to be going out on BBC World very soon.
Well, yeah, so I actually had to get a copy from you so I could watch them, because they're not available on YouTube or anything like that.
No, because of copyright, they can't go on. Can't go on YouTube and that kind of thing. But the Galaxy Britain built has been on BBC World, the original version. And I'm pleased to say, you're the first I'm telling this to live, is that as far as I know, these things are subject to change. The 15th and 16th of August, the Toy Empire will be screened 4 times on BBC World across the world. So local listings, I'll be putting it out on Twitter and on my Instagram and telling people when that's going to be.
Oh,
but
yeah.
as far as I know,
you know, for anyone who's watching and everyone who's going to be watching, you know, seriously watch it because it is brilliant. It's half an hour of, I mean, I was normally I'll put a doco on and, you know, it'll be on the side screen somewhere and I'll be working away. Yeah, I couldn't work while I was watching that because it was just.
Oh, thank you.
No, it was full of information. There was something always going. There was something always, you know, it was good. It was really good.
Thank you, Terry. That's that means a lot. Thank you so much. That's great.
No, that's all right. Just tell them the truth, mate. Tell them the truth. It was good.
Thank you. It was. I will say it was a bit of a. What happened was I pitched straight to the channel of BBC4 in the UK and said, look, it's coming up to the end of, you know, the Rise of Skywalker's coming out. So this is about this time last year. I just got the commission to redo Galaxy and do Toy Empire. And I said, look, and I honestly thought they'd say yes to one of them, but I pitched a Star Wars night of the week that Rise of Skywalker was coming out. And they said yes to both. And at first I ran around the house going, yes. And then I thought, oh, that's a lot of work.
Just a little bit.
as well as all my regular stuff, my regular TV series were going out in the autumn as well. And I do a radio show and all these other bits and bobs. And I thought, oh, how am I going to do that? Well, I didn't take a day off right up until December. But
20-hour days. What was it? 20-hour days, 3 days in a row, sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, whatever. Well, that was Nick.
That was Nick.
No, I've never topped that. But what a privilege, to be fair, Terry, to kind of speak to these people and to kind of, you know, get it out there. And we had such lovely reviews. You know, they got pick of the day, Critics' Choice in all the papers in the UK at 4 stars, and we were blown away really. But I think it's very much the same in your world as well, isn't it? You have to get everything right. You have to get everything absolutely.
Oh, look, I mean, both in Toy Empire and the documentary, you got it spot on. I mean,
thank you.
The feeling of, I suppose it's hard to explain because while I was watching it, I was riveted the whole time, and I was feeling, feeling every little emotion going through it. And I'm not a Star Wars fan. You know, this is my only Star Wars shirt.
but that's the thing. And I said to you, and I said this off air, if you like, that my wife doesn't get Star Wars. I forced her to watch. I begged her to watch Star Wars, the original, New Hope, a couple of years ago, and she watched it and she quite enjoyed it. But I think maybe if you don't get into it when you're a kid, maybe this is not for you. But she enjoyed the documentaries because I think any story, whatever it is, whether you're talking about, you know, whatever the story is, and it's what I've done as a sort of filmmaker, as long as human endeavor is what makes a story, isn't it? Whatever it may be, whether you're following, you know, a heart-wrenching story or a positive story, a celebratory story. It's all about, as humans, we are curious about other humans, and we want to know what it took to do something, whatever that may be. And I think that was what we were trying to do with the Toy Empire and Galaxy. And they're just really nice people. And it's like you're sitting in the room with these really nice people talking about something, and they're so modest about it as well.
Oh yeah. Well, most people don't understand what goes into making a film. You know, they watch an hour and a half of a movie and it's like, oh, that's nice. They don't realize the last 3 years of 200 people's lives have been devoted to this one thing.
Exactly.
And every waking moment. And but actually, going in and talking to those people and getting their story, that was just the best.
Oh, it was just, there were so many, honestly, I won't bore you with it all, but there were so many problems we had with the doc. So many things didn't come, on time, and things didn't happen on time. And when we interviewed Nick, we went to go and see him, we went to go see him in the Caribbean, as one does. So we filmed with him there. And
tough gig there.
It was tough. But then we didn't actually have the insurance in place because that hadn't been sorted out. We thought it had, to get the permits to film in LA, and we were flying the next day to LA. So we had all these interviews lined up, and we had to film on Hollywood Boulevard and at the Griffith Observatory for the Hollywood sign, all that kind of stuff, and do 3 interviews. We didn't have permission. We didn't have the insurance in place, because then you have to go to film LA to get the permit. And of course, you can't just film anywhere you like. So I was absolutely, and it literally came in like 11th hour, and we were able to do it because I thought we're going to get to LA. And
you're just going to be sitting there on the beach at Santa Monica, just twiddling your thumbs.
Just twiddling our thumbs. We did have a quick look at Santa Monica, but that wasn't much downtime.
Santa Monica, 3rd Street Promenade. The pier,
no time.
Venice
I literally
Beach.
ran to look at it. I ran to look at it. I said, I've got to check this. I've got to say I've seen it. I've seen the Pacific. So I ran because I surfed the North Sea. I've never surfed the Pacific.
There's no surf there whatsoever.
Yeah, isn't there? Right. Okay.
Oh.
Anyway, I ran. I said to Matt, just because the cameraman was somewhere else. There's only 3 of us on the crew. So I ran off just to look at it, just to say I'd seen it. And that was it. And I said, I've seen it, that's it. And then we left. I think I had half a day off. And then we got home, and then we had an interview Gary Kurtz, who was wonderful. And sadly, Gary's no longer with us, the producer, the American producer of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. And I managed to contact his wife recently, and I've sent her a copy of the book, and we've kind of kept in touch, which is nice. And also Roger Christian, we flew him over from Canada and did the interview with him. And then once we got all those in the can, it was like, wow, we got him.
No, the interviews were fantastic. I mean, if anyone wants to or gets a chance to see it, obviously, I'll throw up some links to your book as well. For people that want to buy the book, because some people like to read these things. Me, I like to watch these things. But look, the documentary was fantastic.
Thank you.
Toy Empire was fantastic. Now, have you got any plans for the future that you can talk about?
Well, it's interesting. I've got a big, because when everything went crazy at Christmas, I did a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews with newspapers and stuff, and a lot of Star Wars podcasts. Everyone said to me, "What's next? What's next?" And at that point, I was just going, "I just want to rest. I just want to rest." Then,
I know the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you do. You think you've done that. You've done a major project or 2 major projects, whatever it is, and you think, I just feel I need to rest. But of course, my TV show went on to the end of March, and then of course, sadly, the whole world's been devastated by coronavirus. So it's sort of been working from home. So I've got a few. Not much is happening in kind of that world at the moment. I'm hoping it won't take long. So I've got 2 or 3 ideas. So watch this space. I've been approached by some people to do some stuff that might take off for next year. So maybe some convention kind of stuff. But I'd love to make some more docs, and I've got a few, and I'm running them by some of my Star Wars buddies who are going to just look at things.
Fancy you should say that, because I reckon there's going to be. I don't think there's ever been a Warhammer doc.
Oh.
A Games Workshop documentary.
No, I don't think there has, is there?
Oh.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go.
You heard it here first.
Hatchet plan, Terry. You see, this is the thing, and Warhammer is absolutely massive. So
it's beyond massive. I mean,
you've already got an audience, a huge audience. Such a following that it's a no-brainer. You see, all these things now. It used to be, it's like Star Wars and Warhammer. It all used to be so underground, and now it is everywhere. Now it's everywhere because of the internet, because you find kindred spirits, and that's how these things grow, isn't it? And I think that. Oh, come
on, Dungeons and Dragons, please. We used to just hide away and pretend that we don't play that. And then off we'd run to a basement somewhere.
It's so true. It's so true. But
it was like a secret society.
Yeah, but now nerds have taken over the world. We can come out of our shells. But I do think that there are so many platforms out there for this now, and there are so many streaming services that need this kind of content, and you've got an audience there already.
Exactly.
Warhammer is an ideal one.
So, I mean, I just build costumes. That's all I do.
Yeah, you don't just build costumes though, Terry, do you? You build the most amazing costumes. And I know that having interviewed you, this is really weird because this is the other way around, because last time we spoke on this, I was interviewing you for another thing. So it's very nice for you to interview me, and I'm very flattered, so thank you.
Well, I mean, as I said, unsung heroes, I mean, people like yourself, they don't get interviewed. They don't get a chance to say their piece and to tell their story. So that's what this is all about.
You. Well, that's very kind of you, mate. I appreciate it.
All right, what else is on your plate? What else would you like to talk about in the last few minutes we've got?
Well, I as I say, I've kind of, I'm not sure whether we should do another Star Wars one. I've always thought about doing another Star Wars.
You're
one.
A massive Star Wars fan, okay? So, and given that you've got the knowledge, you've got the right verbiage to be able to pull the information out of the people involved.
Well, I to be fair, I've been in broadcasting for 25 years, so I've always sat down and I've literally done thousands of interviews. That's the weird thing. So I suppose I've got a lot of experience in doing that. But I think my advice to anybody, if you're ever going to do an interview with somebody, is to kind of, I watched a lot of interviews with people involved with Star Wars, and you would see the interviewer. It becomes about the interviewer, and as opposed to about the interviewee. And I always thought that if you ask a question, sit back and just let them tell their
let them go. Just let them say their piece. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, with Roger's interview, the Raw interview is 3.5 hours long. So just Roger Christian's interview is 3.5 hours. So you've got to kind of it's being curious, isn't it? And having the deference, I suppose, to kind of step back and listen to what they got to say. And
and this is where with the Warhammer side of things, I fall over, because like I can't interview Warhammer people because I don't know the verbiage. I don't know, they start talking about Primarchs and bits and pieces and different chapters, and I haven't got a clue. I'm just like,
oh, no, that's interesting. No, that's interesting you say that, Terry, because the BBC press office dubbed me as a super fan. They called me the super fan to kind of promote everything, which is very nice, very flattering. But I don't know all the kind of expanded universe stuff. I don't read the comics. People think, oh, you're not a super fan then? Well, no, I didn't purport to being a super fan in that sense. But I understand Star Wars, but I wouldn't know who the third creature from the back row is, and what their background history is, and how they came to be in the cantina at that particular moment. Whereas real super fans could probably tell you that, but I could tell you about the production of it, and that's what has been. And
that's more valuable to me anyway, is the production, the behind the scenes side of things.
Right. Yeah, I think all behind the scenes stuff is great. I mean, I've just started watching the Gallery of the Mandalorian on Disney Plus, and how they made the Mandalorian. That's great.
Actually,
more of that, please.
Speaking about Mandalorian, a friend of mine, Alex Choate, he was the director of continuity on Guardsman, and he's actually made a screen accurate version.
Oh wow!
And I mean, it's glorious. So
I need to see that.
He's a props builder in LA. So what I might do actually at some stage is I might get him and you on at the same time, and we might even get a few other prop builders, etc. And we'll start throwing some props around.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I haven't got any props, but I can certainly be.
You can host it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I could do that. That's good. I could talk the hind legs off a donkey, so that's fine. I could just do that. But yeah, that'd be superb. Anything we could chat about, we love you, Terry.
But yeah, I mean, Alex and a few others are working on active projects right now, even with COVID going, which is really, really, really good for them. Even though they are working from home out of their home workshops, but they're managing to get through this, troubled time.
Yeah, it is, and it will certainly affect a lot of the industry, throughout the world. And I don't know what they're going to be putting on television in the autumn across the country, because there'll be nothing new. Will there,
reruns.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. And maybe in the UK they could rerun the Galaxy Britain built and Toy Empire.
I reckon they should. All right, David. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And,
thank you.
And waffling with me, and I know
It's been great. I've enjoyed it. It's whizzed by. It's absolutely whizzed by.
I know it has.
It's flown by. It's past the yard now, so I can have a beer. So there we are.
Oh yeah, no, it's past 12. Go and get your beer.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, and